Again, thank you all for coming. My name is David Arietti, and I teach biology here at this campus. I've been here over 35 years, and I also teach environmental science and animal behavior at other schools as well, Columbia College of Chicago as well, and Columbia College of Missouri. And the campuses I teach at there are Justin Gardner and Crystal Lake. But this is my main campus, and I only live 5 minutes from here, so that makes it convenient. Anyway, what I'm going to do today is tell you about the environment. This is my passion and my love. But at the present time, I teach biology here, and in my classes, I like to combine both the environment and biology since they're all intimately related. Now, here you see the cover, and I want to point out that I show everybody this flyer here, and since I use it quite frequently, it becomes a frequent flyer, is what I mentioned. Okay, anyway. I have to get that in. All right, now, so today it's about the environment, the human race, and stupidity. And unfortunately, we see what's going on now all over the world, especially this week. And I'll try not to get too political, but sometimes I just have to mention a little bit about that. Anyway, so today we're going to learn about what stupidity is. And yes, I have a definition from the dictionary. It is not fancy, but it came directly from the dictionary. Okay, so anyway, let's begin. It's all over. Murphy's Law. Maybe there's something that, that's not too far-fetched. My daughter married a guy named Murphy. So all right. Anyway, no, that's true. So anyway, what we have here is the outline of the lecture. I'm going to give you some definitions of stupidity. We're going to talk about the population, fossil fuels, pollution, warfare, Amazon, and the letter to Jeff Bezos. It's just coincidence. We're talking about the real Amazon, which I was there 2 years ago. And Jeff Bezos, he's the guy that runs Amazon Books. Talk to you about Indonesia, the air quality index, people with breathing problems because of fires, orangutans and palm oil, talk a little bit about palm oil, consequences of climate change, Trump's environmental rollbacks, and methane, and global warming potential. Explain all this, ice melt, and solutions to stupidity involving climate change. These are real issues that have been on my mind for the last 30 years. So anyway. So what I want to do then, here is like a good picture of the title. We see nice clean earth on one side, and of course we see pollution and disaster on the other. And that picture on the right is representative that the earth's quality is now in our hands for many reasons, and I'll explain all those as we go on. This is the definition of stupidity that I got from the dictionary. There's not much there. It says behavior that shows a lack of good sense or judgment. Now we don't need a fancy schmancy definition, but that's good enough. Here, Harlan Ellison, he's one of my favorite science authors. He says the two most common elements in the universe are hydrogen and stupidity. I wish I made that up, but I didn't. But the next one comes from our hero, Albert Einstein. I don't think it says here the difference between stupidity and genius is that genius has its limits. Now, I'm sure we all agree with that, and as you're going to see, as I progress with today's lecture, you'll see what I mean. And again, thank you all for coming. All right. There we go. Okay, now, first example. This happened this week. As I was preparing this lecture, every day there was something in the newspaper. Now, I don't know if any of you want to live in Iowa and have a high school Iowa teacher, but this guy in particular kind of intrigues me. A guy named Matt Beisch. You don't want him. Speaking of stupidity taken to the nth power. Matt Beisch has been identified as the Iowa teacher placed on administrative leave after posting to social media what appeared to many to be a veiled shooting threat against the climate activist Greta Thunberg. She's the Scandinavian, I believe Swedish, 16-year-old who sailed from Sweden to America in a sailboat. So she didn't use any fossil fuels, to talk to the UN and really criticize them for not doing anything for her future family, grandkids, great-grandkids, and down the road. Actually, she was doing that for everybody in this room as well, and all your future great-great-great-grandkids as well. So Greta Thunberg, she's a 16-year-old, and he was named by the school district as the high school teacher believed to have placed a comment on social media. And that comment was as follows. I remember it. He put it on Twitter. He says, well, at the time, Greta, I believe, was going to Iowa to talk to people. And he said, if I had my sniper rifle, I would have gone. So this is the type of people we had. He had the stupidity to say something like that. And Greta, of course, she's an environmental activist like myself, and she wants the world to survive. So when you have these kind of people, I do not think you want motivations teaching your kids. All right. So anyway, that's a very good example. Now, what I want to do is show you something real cool. I'm going to show you something with the population clock. And what we're going to do is we're going to wait an hour, and we're going to compare the amount of people born as I present this lecture in an hour. That's a very good information here. I use this for my environmental science lecture. And if you look on the right, we have a number. So what I will do is I will write down this number. And this is the approximate number of people on the planet as we speak. Notice, roughly every second, 5 people are born and 2 people die. So we'll go 821, okay? So that's 604, 670, 821. So what I'm going to do is set the alarm for an hour, and then we will see how many people were added to the planet. This is up here. And I'm going to set the timer for an hour. Let's see, 1 hour to start. There we go. Okay. So I set it here, and we'll see how many people. So I'm going to leave this over there in the corner, and we'll continue with my PowerPoint. But these are interesting numbers. This is approximate. There are a few of these population clocks around. They all don't say the same thing, but it's the approximate, over 7.5 billion people at the present time. When I was born in 1945, we only had 2.5 billion. So the world has increased almost a little over 3 times. And if you look here, this is a chart that tells you the world's population based with country. Okay, this shows you more or less the largest countries. At the present time, there are roughly 200 and something countries in the world. And of course, the top 3 countries in population are China, India, and the United States. We're number 3 with about 327 million at the present time. And unfortunately, it is the countries like ours which do the most damage because we have to live high on the hog, and therefore we do a lot of cutting, chopping, and digging. That's one of the terms I use to represent what we do. So over here, we see India, and I doubt the conductors are going to get the tickets from everybody on the train. But anyway, that shows you a little bit. And this is India. Here we see the family I love to pick on, the Dugars. I don't think much of them. As you notice, I put a dunce cap on them. And this is something that shows you, I hate to use the word, well, let's put this, never use the word hate, use the word dislike intensely. The word stupidity, but here, this just shows you. Okay, I don't know, you all know this couple, they were on the Learning Channel. It was called 16 and Counting, 17 and Counting, 18 and Counting, 19 and Counting, which has to do with the number of kids, biological kids they had. I don't think it ever crossed their mind if they ever heard of the word adoption. They could have had 2 kids and adopt the rest. As far as I'm concerned, if they wanted to have 100 kids, it's okay if 98 of them were adopted, you see? But they didn't think like this, and of course we all know about Josh over there. He got into trouble with child molestation. But anyway, she had a 20th kid, I think at the age of 46, Michelle, and the kid named Jubilee died. She had some sort of physical problem. And by the way, all the actual names, biological kids, all begin with the letter J for some reason. They like Jay. I think his name is Jim Bob and her name is Michelle. But anyway, this just shows you the situation here and the fact that the TV, the TLC would actually put this on, and so a lot of people now are going to want a lot of children because maybe they'll get on TV. You call it reality TV. I don't use that word. I use something else. I never curse in public. Okay. So anyway, I think you get the idea. All right. Now, I want to go into a lot of the problems caused by too many people. The reason why I put the Dugars on, because they're just representative of what's going on. Now, if you would add all the people, all the grandkids that Michelle and Jim Bob are going to have, I'm going to tell you it'll probably go way over 100, which put another way, it's enough for about maybe 11 baseball teams. They can have a whole league called the Dugar League, you know? I mean, you have that many kids, you know, if you include the girls. All right, anyway, so these are fossil fuels and nuclear, which is the biggest problem we have facing the world. And by the way, I myself now drive an electric car, a totally 100% electric, so I try to put out as little carbon dioxide as possible. I want to say one thing, I spew out more carbon dioxide than my car. I have a Chevy Bolt, and I do not spew out, as far as I know, 1 molecule of CO2. But then people are going to say, well, in manufacturing the car, they have to spew out all that CO2. That is correct, but once it's made, no more CO2. Whereas the other cars you have to manufacture, and then to keep them going, they have to spew out CO2. So if you know what I mean. So anyway, so here's the biggest problem: oil, coal, and gas. And this is the main problem with climate change, because we're heating up the planet by putting out more CO2. And those of you who study physics or learn physics or even hear about it in the paper, the CO2 absorbs the heat more, well, it absorbs it. Not more than other greenhouse gases. I'll get to those in a few minutes as we go on with the lecture, but that's a big problem. Here we see coal, oil, gas, and global warming. Notice that CO2 is on fire, and over here we have some pictures of oil products. Up there we see the rigs in either the Gulf of Mexico or in the North Sea. And over here, look at that. We got beautiful cities, nice clean air. Okay? Now, the trouble with this is, many people here smoke. By the way, that's one of the 3 evils on the planet, as far as I'm concerned. I won't tell you what the last one is, because I'll get in trouble. But the first 2 are cigarettes and warfare. The third one, you'll have to see me in private if you want to know what it is. All right. Can you imagine the people have to breathe and smoke at the same time? That's very bad. You got a choice, right? Okay. Anyway, so these are the problems. And this just summarizes everything with climate change, because I can give a lecture on climate change, but that's not why I'm here today. I'm just showing you the effects of climate change. And the fact is, the reason why I use the word stupidity is because we keep doing it. We know it's bad. We keep increasing the population. And here's the problem with the population. We like to be affluent. We're the rich. Every country wants to be rich. So the more rich they are, the more they pollute. A good example is by eating meat, and I'll explain that, especially because when you eat meat, you have to produce more cows, and more cows produce methane, and that's a big greenhouse gas. And I'll discuss that later on. So over here we see a picture, looks like a science fiction movie. Looks like New York on the water, and unfortunately that could be in the year 2100, because the way it's going now, we're heating up the planet, the ice is melting, and I want to point out something to you about rising sea levels. There are 2 reasons for the rising sea levels. One is the melting of the ice, especially in Greenland, and 2, water has something called thermal expansion. What that means is, as you heat up things like metal and water, they actually expand. So that's what's happening with the water. Not only are you adding more water, but the laws of physics, there's actually a coefficient that you can put in the formula and figure out how much it's going to expand. Now, we did this in high school. When I was in high school, the teacher showed us, you had, I think it was a brass ring, and it came with a special ball. And before he would heat up the ball would go through the brass ring. And then he heats up the ball, and it expands just enough so it won't fit in. You understand the concept? So that's the same concept we have here with the water, so it's going to expand. Okay. Now, this sign came from a couple weeks ago that I saw online, and this means a lot, because they know if we continue with climate change and the oceans rise, it says march now or swim later, which means, I think that's pretty cool. Yeah. Well, what do we see in Texas, right? Wasn't there a lot of these homes, actually, in Texas? You know what they got? A lot of these homes got free swimming pools. Sorry to be a little dark, but that's what they got, you know. Hey, you don't have to pay for a swimming pool, you just go out there and, you know, let it rain and pour, and that's what you got. Dirty water? Yeah. Is that what you said? Yeah, well, they can clean it by heating it, but anyway. All right, so, well, to talk about that, I also want to deal with these issues because all these are related to the human race, okay? Air pollution, water pollution, and land pollution. Now, I just have a few pictures I want to show you just to make my point. All right. What's going on here? Hold on. I've got to go again. This thing has, I might not even use this. Hold on. Let's go back. There we go. I got a lot of good stuff for you here. The best is yet to come. All right. Let's try this. There we go. Okay. Now, I did a lot of research, and over the years, I keep doing research and I want to add something. I want to point out, now I don't know if any of you know this, but if you see all these cars that are spewing out pollution, but there is a link to air pollution and mental health. Let me just show you this. I had everything planned the best I could. All right. So this comes from an article from Forbes. I'm not going to read it to you, just a little bit. It says here, I'll just read the first couple sentences. A growing number of studies are pointing to a link between exposure to air pollution and mental health disorders across age groups. Research to date has mainly focused on air pollution effects among adults. Now, a new set of studies conducted by scientists from the Cincinnati Children's Hospital Medical Center and the University of Cincinnati has found a similar connection. Now, I imagine, you know, we could read this, but this will take time, but you get the idea. The fact now that they even have to talk about this tells you something. See? Now, I know a little bit about mental illness because my father was a psychiatrist who dealt specifically with schizophrenia and depression. All right. So anyway, let me change this. Let's get out of that. Go back here. And there we go. Okay. So that's air pollution. So I just want to let you, I don't even know many of you knew there was a link, but obviously your whole health is linked to any type of pollution, okay, both mental and your physical health. Okay, then we have water pollution, okay? If we look here, anybody want to swim up there in China, nice red river? I wouldn't want to. Look at that kid over there. Boy swimming in polluted water in India. Wow, that must be pretty healthy, huh? So anyway, so here we see actual water, and unfortunately we have this all over the planet, and you see poor countries like that, and I don't know what the answer is. We just pollute. We know we're polluting, but we do it anyway because it's cheaper to not do anything, and of course there's probably zero life in there, maybe a few bacteria, and maybe some other kind of worms. Here we see something. I want you to look at the sign. This was in Iowa a few months ago. What's that sign say? River Road. The river flooded. This was a fantastic photo. It was just taken by accident. This was Iowa. Look at the rain. This is a road right by the Mississippi River. Apt name. See where it says red? That's what the sign says. River Road. Isn't that coincidence? I didn't make this up. Actual photo. I think Colbert that mentioned this too, but I just happened to find it. So interesting how people take pictures at the right time, isn't it? All right. Here we see land pollution. Look at all the poor elephants and the cutting down of the trees and stuff like this. They have to live in this garbage dump. Okay. By the way, speaking of elephants, someone asked me, said, Dave, you know that what do you get when you cross an elephant and a rhinoceros? And I told him, hell if I know. All right. So anyway, here we see now warfare. This is one of the most ridiculous things the human race does. There is no excuse for warfare. Of course, you've got to mention guys like Hitler, come on, what do we do with him? But the question is, why was he allowed to get to where he was in the first place? See, this boggles the mind, because right now, we see this ridiculous war going on in Syria now between the Turks, the Kurds, and Syria. And now Russia's going to get involved, and NATO, and it's going to turn out to be a real mess. So, I want to point out Aleppo's in Syria and Dresden, Germany. what's the relationship between the two? Well, first let me tell you this. I lived in Israel for a period of 5 years, okay? And when I first got there in 1968, 69, you could hear actual bombing, okay? It was ridiculous. I lived in the town of Tiberias, which was across the Sea of Galilee. Syria was on the other side, and it would sound like thunder, and we would keep hearing boom, boom, boom. It never made any sense to me. I wish that was real thunder, but we knew it was just bombing, and that still lives with me the rest. This was over 50 years ago. So here we see dropping bombs, and the things that get killed with bombs, it's not so much people. It's the plants, the animal, the fungi, and the bacteria. These are the life that we don't even care about. What the hell? We're trying to kill people, we'll kill the plants, trees, everything. It doesn't really matter. Yeah, but the point is, they don't care what they kill, as long as they kill something, you know, not to be cynical. But anyway, watch. Here we see Homs, Syria, February 26, 2016. This is what Homs, Syria looks today. Isn't that great? Look at Dresden. This was during the war, I think, or after the war, World War II. Dresden looked pretty good up there, and then it's all bombed out for what? So here's the problem. We build and then we destroy. To me, it makes no sense. Now, maybe to some of you, if you discuss it with politicians. Right, I'm not blaming him for nothing yet. Wait, I haven't blamed him yet, but the time is coming. All right, but anyway, so here we see homes. Can you imagine kids who live here? Look at their homes. Total destruction. We did the exact same thing in Germany. Now, I've asked somebody why we do it. They said because we wanted to give an example or something. Whatever it did, didn't make any sense. Because when we destroy, guess what? We have to rebuild. When we rebuild, what do? We have to cut, chop, and dig to build. We have to get rid of everything, then we got to rebuild it again. It's just like here on Tui. There was a bar on Tui right across from Fresh Farms, okay? Evidently they didn't do well. So what did? They tore it down after a couple years, and now they have to cut, chop, and dig to build the Chick-fil-A. You know what I'm talking about there? Okay? It didn't make any sense to me. It looked good. I don't go to bars, but the point is, that place looked nice. It was expensive to build, and then it had to tear it down to build something else. You see what I'm saying? So that's the same thing here. I don't even know if Homs, Syria is going to be rebuilt. The situation in the Middle East is total chaos, and it's not getting any better. Dresden, of course, they built because Germany is considered a Western country, and you know, they have more sense there. Here we see some more. Look at this. There are about 1,000 of these pictures. See the chair over there? This is the way the Middle East looks now, especially Syria. Look at this. I mean, there's no excuse for this. This is why the human race, we have something wrong with us, and we still allow this to happen. Now here in America, fortunately, we don't have anything looking like this. Well, maybe on the west side of Chicago we do, and that's another story. I won't get into that, but we do. Okay, now I want to show you Aleppo. Aleppo, Syria. That looks nice, doesn't it? Now I want to show you something. I told you, I did a lot of work on this lecture. I want to show it to you what we got. Okay, I have here 28 pictures before and after pics reveal what war did to the largest city in Syria. Look at that. That's a nice town. Look there. Destruction. That's before and after. There's a market. In Arabic we call it a souk. And here, look at that. None of this makes any sense to me. Look. I'll just show you. Look at that beautiful marble. Look at it now. Here we see more. Looks like a nice building. Total destruction. And all this has to be rebuilt. But not only that, they have to clear it. So that means, what are they going to clear it with? Well, they take bulldozers, okay? All right, so when they take the bulldozer, that spews out more carbon dioxide, fuel, everything else, also pollute the air, so we can clean up the mess that we polluted in the first place. If I sound a little cynical, I suppose I am. Take a look. So I'm just trying to make my point. I don't have to show you all of these, but this is the way it is. There's nothing but rubble. Look at that. Looks like one of our malls, doesn't it? Our malls look almost exactly like that, right? Well, this is, look at this. Nice, huh? All right, so here we see before and after. Anyway, you get the idea. Okay, I don't want to spend too much time on this. I'm just showing you the idea. All right, so that was Aleppo. Now, I want to talk to you about warfare. This is something, as I mentioned earlier, that I never understood. And when we see the horrors of war, and it's still going on, I wonder if we're going to ever learn, okay? These are pictures from World War II, and I want to show you something here that really bring it home. And I'm going to show you what I saw. All right, here we see, unfortunately, I saw the beginning of Saving Private Ryan and Hacksaw Ridge. Any of you see that? Did you like it? Was it kind of violent?
It was some funny scenes, some violent scenes.
Yeah, the violent scenes really ticked me off because it shows you, again, I don't like to use the word stupidity, but this shows us the stupidity. Now, if you see here, you see the soldiers, they're just running, they're just like sitting ducks, which is what they were. They were getting shot at, and in the movies, they show you a lot of blood and people being blown up and stuff, and a lot of blood on the beach. And this is probably the way it was. I was fortunate. I never had to go to war. But the fact just seeing this, and I imagine this is based on reality, that we have to see this nonsense, okay? Or horrors is a better word. Here we see Hacksaw Ridge. It had an interesting story to it, but when they show you all the wars where they were using flamethrowers and people getting blown up and all this, it's really, I don't know what word I can use, really disheartening. And of course, this is all part of the human spirit. This picture, look at the date, October 10th, 2019. What's today's date? October 15th, 5 days ago, beginning into Syria where the Turkey attacked the Kurds. Again, more smoke. What does smoke mean? More pollution. You see the point? I don't know how many of these buildings are going to stand if we came back today or next week, how many are really in one piece. Okay? So this is happening as we speak right now. Now, here's something else that I don't know if any of you ever think about. We hear about World War II and the Nazi U-boats blowing up a lot of ships, right? What happens to the ships? They sink. Do they just disappear in the water? No. They land where? On animals down at the bottom of the ocean. How many of you ever thought about that? When a ship sinks, boom, we're killing the crabs, the clams, whatever's down there, right? Do any of you ever think of that? Probably not, because the media doesn't say this ship is going to sink. I just couldn't find any good pictures of that to give you an idea. But like the Titanic, that went down. I'm sure that did not land on a place, on a plane without any organisms living there. You see the point? This is something to think about before they go to war. That's just my opinion. All right? Now, next, let's talk about the Amazon. I told you there's a lot to cover, and I'm trying to do the best I can in what little time I have. As I mentioned earlier, I was at the Amazon 2 years ago. I went down to Manaus. Manaus is the capital of the state, Amazonas, and it's in the middle there. It's about 200 miles from the equator, and I spent 11 days there, 6 days on a boat, which was the best thing I ever did in my life as far as I'm concerned. And I wanted to see firsthand the trees, the animals, and by the way, if you're going to ask me, I did not even see one mosquito. Now, I don't know if that's good or not, because I went during the dry season, and I was taking these anti-malarial pills. I had to take them one a day when I was, well, 2 days before I got there, one a day while I was there, and then 7 days when I came back. And I didn't see one mosquito. Although people on our boat, when we went to land, we only had a 16-cabin boat, and we would go on land looking for animals and plants and things like this. 2 women got stung by wasps, but they were okay. Nothing happened to them. They just got stung. So anyway, I was surprised, but then I went during the dry season, so you would expect not too many insects. Now, I want to talk to you, today I'm going to be talking about 2, I like to call them organisms, but 2 presidents, Bolsonaro and the other guy who lives in Washington. I won't mention him yet. Okay, I want to talk to you about some of the stuff that comes from Bolsonaro. Now, if you ever seen his face, there it is there. I tried to...
His face is next to you.
No, he looks like the other guy. But anyway, all right. This is what, I got this from an article. I'm just going to show you a little bit about this. And this really ticks me off because I'm going to ask you, who really owns the Amazon? Now, he says he owns it, but According to this article in Truthdig, which is an online newspaper, he says that they say that he could threaten human life on Earth. How can he do that? Easy. By saying he owns the rainforest and doing whatever he wants. He could tell everybody to cut, chop, and dig it down just so he can make more land for cows. So a lot of people that become wealthy can eat a lot of steak. Yeah, well, we can discuss that later. Okay, so that's one thing with him. Let me show you the other two, or the three things I got here. Bolsonaro lies about the rainforest fires. By the way, good news, I have a friend, his name is Neto, in Brazil. He speaks good English. I'm in touch with him on WhatsApp, and he was telling me for the last couple of weeks it was raining cats and dogs, okay? As a matter of fact, he was telling me it was raining so much with cats and dogs that he stepped in a poodle. Anyway, so most of the fires are put out. Okay, here it says, Brazilian Amazon deforestation surge is real, despite Bolsonaro's denial. So here, who do we believe? Do we believe the presidents, or do we believe common sense and what the newspapers and the pictures say, okay? Bolsonaro said deforestation is not real, etc., etc. Again, you can read the whole article, but the point is, we are, these guys think they can get away with lying all the time, and okay? Again, these are just recent articles. See, this is of July 29th. So everything I'm showing you is recent. I'm not giving you stuff from many years in the past. Okay, let's go back to this one. Let's go to 31 here. And we'll talk Bolsonaro say the Amazon belongs to Brazil. Okay, so here's the question. Who owns the Amazon? Well, that's an interesting question. The point is, he is just lucky enough that it's on his territory. But just because he owns it does not mean he can do this to it. You get the point? Okay? The Amazon is just like the lungs of the earth. Now, nobody in this room can live without your lungs, right? So that's why the earth cannot live without the rainforest, okay? There are many rainforests, and I have some good news about the Amazon. First of all, the fires, most of them were put out, and there's still about 80% of the Amazon left. However, we do have other rainforests, such as in Indonesia and other places like that, but those are not doing so well. But nevertheless, at least the Amazon has most of its greenery left. Okay? So when he says that this belongs to Brazil, okay, it does belong to Brazil, but that does not mean he can chop, cut, and dig as much as he wants with impunity. Okay? Now, let's see. This is very important. Let's see how long this is. I wanted to show you this, if this is just a couple minutes. Here.
So you've probably seen that large swathes of the Amazon rainforest are burning. Plumes of smoke can be seen from space, prompting attention from world leaders, celebrities and environmentalists alike. So why is the Amazon rainforest so important? It's the world's largest rainforest, sometimes called the lungs of the planet for its role in absorbing carbon dioxide and producing oxygen. The billions of trees in the rainforest hold a vast amount of carbon accumulated over hundreds or even thousands of years. The leaves absorb a huge quantity of carbon dioxide and put oxygen back into the air, all helping to slow the pace of global warming. The Amazon also generates rain for agriculture across South America and is home to millions of plants, animals and people. But there's even more at stake than you might think. When forests burn, carbon is released in the form of CO2, which adds to carbon levels in the atmosphere. Scientists estimate we could reach a tipping point where the Amazon will no longer be able to soak up and store so much carbon, meaning that will go into the atmosphere. This could be a disaster when it comes to climate change and would make climate targets hard to meet. Of course, whole swathes of the world used to be covered in trees, and some countries in South America think they should not be lectured about how to manage their own rainforests when so many trees have disappeared elsewhere.
Okay, so you get the idea. Anyway, so let's continue now with this. One more. David Noor, he's the Channel 7 newscaster. Let's see what he's got here. think this on the last couple of minutes.
The fires raging in the Amazon rainforest. Scientists warn at a record pace, and this could be dire, they say, when it comes to climate change. And tonight, Brazil's president and who he's blaming. Here's ABC foreign correspondent James Longman.
Tonight, the Amazon rainforest, often called the planet's lungs, is struggling to breathe. Record fires causing massive devastation. Nearly 73,000 detected by researchers so far this year, an 83% increase from 2018. The fires visible even from space. Those white patches, not clouds, but smoke. Powerful winds carrying it nearly 1,700 miles away to Sao Paulo. These images from Monday afternoon. Drivers forced to use their headlights in the darkness. The major concern, how the wildfires could accelerate climate change. The Amazon rainforest produces 20% of the oxygen in the Earth's atmosphere, a vital defense against global warming. Tonight, Brazil's president, without evidence, suggesting environmental groups may have had a role in the fires as a ploy for money.
Yeah, the NGO,
And David, President
non-governmental
Bolsonaro's critics
organization.
say he's harmed the rainforest since he took office, sending it off, they feel, to farmers, loggers and miners. David?
James Longman will stay on it. Thanks.
Hi everyone, George Stephanopoulos here. Thanks for checking out the ABC News YouTube channel. If you'd like to get more videos, show highlights, and watch live event coverage, click on the...
So anyway, so you saw that. Okay, now, here we have a beautiful picture. I superimposed that. See, lungs look like plants, our lungs, right? Okay, so here it is. You ask yourself this question. Do the lungs support only the torso or the whole body? The torso is this part, see? Now, the Amazon are lungs of our planet. That's why it doesn't belong only to Brazil, as President Bolsonaro arrogantly says. It is part of the life support system of the whole planet. Bolsonaro does not own the Amazon. He is the steward of the Amazon, and I think he forgets that. And this is the problem. Once you become a leader, you think you can do anything you want. I think that's a nice picture there. Now, you might say, look at this. Here's the Earth. You might say this person is literally well-rounded. Okay. So anyway, so here we see the Earth is dodging the bullets, which are meteorites, and that's the, how long can we last by keep dodging these so-called anti-environmentalists? Anyway, you get the idea there. All right. Now let me give you some statistics about the rainforest. It's the 60% of the Amazon is in Brazil, and it's followed by Peru with 13%, and unfortunately they're doing some burning there too. Colombia 10%, and minor amounts in Venezuela, Ecuador, Bolivia, Guyana, Suriname, and French Guiana. The whole rainforest has about 2.1 million, that's kilometers, not square miles. That was an error. It can't be to both. It's I think it's 2.1 million square miles. I think it's 5.6. I made a mistake here. I'll have to check that out. I made a mistake. But anyway, I miscalculated. It's not the same. There is about 1.6 kilometers per mile, okay? I'll give you the exact number later on. But anyway, it's I think it's 2.1 million square miles. So it's roughly almost 5 million square kilometers. Anyway, I wanted to show you some pictures of the Amazon, the good pictures, and I'll just show you this real briefly. This is a conglomerate of a whole bunch of pictures. You see how pretty it looks? This is before humans get involved. Look at all the animals, the greenery, the rivers, everything's nice. Snakes, people that seem to be enjoying themselves, trees. And then we can go back here and we'll see the bad parts. Human destruction. See? Similar set of pictures, but one is ugly, the other is beautiful. I am trying to keep it, the former, pretty, okay? So this just shows you what we have done in a really good way here. Okay. Now, let's get to agriculture. Talk about cows. Why does Bolsonaro want to cut down the trees? Well, they want to raise two things, cows and soybeans, okay? Why do we need more cows first? First of all, due to their digestive system, they spew out a lot of methane. And also, I don't think it's good to eat meat every day, right? I think we found out eating too much meat because of the cholesterol and and other things in it is not good. It's what?
That's right.
It's right? What did we say?
I said it's right, you shouldn't have.
Oh, yeah, right. Anyway, so what they do is, they have a lot of cows, and they grow the cows. But what happened is Bolsonaro, he didn't think. What didn't he think? Europe got real ticked off, and they said to him, listen, if you keep burning down the rainforest, we're not going to buy any of your products. He thought that if you cut, chop, and dig the land, you're going to raise more soybeans and more cows, therefore more money for him, for Brazil. But he didn't realize they're going to cut him off. It said, we're not going to buy your products unless you stop this burning, cutting, chopping, and digging. And I think a little bit he came to a senses, okay? Now, speaking of cows, there was a very interesting story that happened here in America. You know, I know this guy, his name is Charlie. He owns a dairy farm up in Wisconsin. And he was telling me, he says, hey, Arietta, you know, something happened. My cows stopped giving milk. I said, they did? He says, yeah. I said, well, did you have the EPA or the Department of Agriculture check everything? He says, yeah. They checked the air, the water, and the hay, the food they were given. Everything was all right. So I said, well, let me think. You say that the food was okay, they still didn't give milk. The water was okay, they didn't give milk. And the air was okay, they didn't give milk. That meant there must be an other reason. Anyway, so, okay. So over here we see more logs and more cutting, chopping, and digging, and these type of pictures really upset me. Now, what do I do about it? Okay, I'll tell you what I did about it. I'm not so eloquent, but my brother is. So I drafted a letter to send to Jeff Bezos. Why Jeff Bezos? Not because his company is also called Amazon, but because he's supposed to be the richest person in the world. So I suggested that he donate 10 billion of his 153 billion fortune to save the Amazon. Now I want to tell you something. If you're a billionaire, let's say you had 100 billion, you give 90 billion away, guess what? You'd still be a billionaire. You see the point? Which is more money than I have in my wallet right now, just to let you know. So you get the idea. I'll read this to you because oh, by the way, I did not get a reply. Even though he said you can write him, his email address is jeff@amazon.com. What easy email than that? Okay, so here, I'll read it to you real quick. It says, as an adjunct professor of environmental science and biology at 3 colleges in the Chicago area, I have written 2 books, of which I have some here, you can look at them, about the environment, all of which are at your company, which shares the name of the endangered forest. I am deeply concerned about the fires raging in the Amazon rainforest. These forests help mitigate the world's climate change, as well as offering us medicines for diseases such as cancer, malaria, bronchitis, rheumatism, and diabetes. They have been rightly called the lungs of the earth. Besides the wildfires now destroying the oxygen-producing trees in Brazil, every year there is deliberate deforestation as farmers who burn the trees during the dry season expand their agricultural fields for cows and soybeans, their major products. All this deforestation imperils the planet and must stop if humanity has a chance of survival. According to news reports, you have enormous assets, perhaps greater than any human being who has ever lived. 153 billion. Why not offer to donate 10 billion to Brazil with the stipulation that the country end deforestation? If you are successful in this effort, history will remember you as the person who saved the Earth's environment. Please contact Jair Bolsonaro, the president of Brazil. Okay. So I don't know if he even paid attention or threw it in the garbage or even got it. But at least I did something. And this is something you can all do too if you're really upset about what's going on. Write letters to the congressmen and people who you feel can make a difference. Okay, now what I want to do is talk to you about air quality. And we mentioned before about air pollution, but this is something interesting that I feel you should know. I want to show you something that I don't know if you're aware of. There is an air pollution quality map in real time. Let me show you this. Get this up. This is real interesting. I show this to my classes. And it takes a while to get there. There it is. Okay. This shows you the air quality at the present time as we speak. Live. Okay. Green is the best. red is the worst. And let me show you this. See this? Oh, yeah. Okay. Notice the U.S. is green and yellow. Yellow is moderate, green is good. Red is very bad. Notice, Asia, it's either yellow or red, okay? Why is that? Because they have a lot of industry, they have a lot of people, and they do not have a lot of pollution control devices. Look at India. India is pretty red up there. Europe is sort of in between, although you see more green than yellow. Again, green is good, yellow is moderate, okay? And if you click on any one of these, let's take this red one here in South America. That's called, oh, that's in Lima, Peru, okay? Puente Pierna. That means bridge of the rock or something like that in Spanish. It's unhealthy, okay? Red is unhealthy, and anything above actually orange is unhealthy. So you got orange, red, purple, and brown colors. Now, some of these can't go above 1,000, although, because the scale will not allow them to, but that's the problem. And by the way, Africa is one of the least polluted areas because they do not have a lot of industry. And this is basically good. And here you see Australia doesn't have a lot of industry either because it's basically desert, okay? Which is actually good. There's not a lot of industry there. In fact, most of it is just outback or desert. So this is a chart, and then it changes every day, maybe by the hour. It's a pretty good map. And I want to talk to you about the air pollution, how it affects children and other people. I don't expect you to read the whole thing, but basically, a lot of people, 30,000, have suffered lung problems because of the air polluted by the fires. And again, these people who set the fires, I don't think they care, they don't even think about that. The reason why they set the fires is to clear the land so they can plant more crops, such as soybeans, and raise more cows for people who can afford it. And here we see kids' health. A newborn dies amid Indonesia fire crisis as parents fear for their kids' health. Again, we speak a lot about the Amazon, but we forget about Indonesia, which is right above Australia, and they have fires every year too. In fact, in 1998, it was very bad, the fires, because the leader, his name was Suharto, I believe, he allowed his friends and cronies to burn, and that burned for many months, and it affected the monkeys, the animals, the people, and again, they didn't seem to care as long as the money is coming in. Well, let me tell you something. If you're very sick, the money's not going to help you, right? I don't think they realize this. Money is not the salvation of the planet. In fact, it's the ruin of the planet, and I'll explain that later on. Another problem is orangutans. Now, I like all animals. I told you I teach animal behavior, and here we see orangutans. These are endangered. Why? Because of palm oil. Now, it's very difficult to buy any crop. I mean, any food item without palm oil. That includes chocolates, candies, foods, baked goods, things like this, okay? Because they cut down the land where the orangutans live. The orangutans live in Sumatra and Borneo, which is part of Indonesia above Australia. And there are some organizations to help the orangutans. They kill a few thousand a year. Here we see some nice orangutans, and they're being cared for by people who care. There are certain organizations who care about them. But on the other hand, we are destroying their land because they want to raise more palm oil, and they don't do well outside of trees. Okay, they're very nice animals, and not only that, there's organizations to save them. And by the way, I'm a member of one of the organizations. I donate to them because I really care about them. I don't care about cover girls. I don't know how that got here. So one more. Here we see orangutans, and I don't think the orangutans care either. See? And a lot of them, unfortunately, are mistreated really bad. They chain them up and they do all sorts of things. So they're really cute animals, especially when they're babies. And anyway, I suggest you go look on and check them out. They're real cool. So that's another problem because of palm oil. So I have a little bit about palm oil here. And if you look on the left, these are what the trees were, and on the right, they cut them down to build the palm oil plantations. which obviously is bad, okay? And if you look at this chart up there, Indonesia, you look at 1960, the whole island in Indonesia, that area was green. Borneo, I'm sorry, this is Borneo. Borneo was all green, and then in 2020, it's about half rainforest left. And these represent the homes. And these animals don't do very well on the ground. They're used to living in trees, okay? That's another thing that we don't really care about, is how they live. They live in trees, and when we cut down the trees, they have a tough time making it on the ground, okay? So fortunately, they have these organizations. And palm oil you'll find in everything. Not only that, it has different names. So it's not only called palm oil, it's called other things too. Sterile oil and a whole bunch of different names. I don't want to go into that now. Okay, now, these are some of the consequences of climate change. And I'm going to get into these, and I'll be finishing up soon. So, we have forest fires, deaths of many animals, harmful algal blooms. That's what my colleagues and myself are working on, a book now about algae in the environment. Okay, so anyway, again, if you look at this chart, you see the consequences of climate change. We have more forest fires, deaths of many animals due to fires, harmful algal blooms, and these blooms and algae actually produce a lot of the world's oxygen, melting ice caps and glaciers, organism mutations, human wars, less fish and more jellyfish. And there's something about the jellyfish. Why do we have a lot of jellyfish? Because what's happening is we're overfishing, and the fish eat the eggs, eat the baby jellyfish, and so if you overfish, the jellyfish is just going to multiply because they don't have any enemies, okay? And that's why the oceans, especially off the coast of Japan, have these giant jellyfish, some of which weigh over 400 pounds. And then we have reef declines. The reef is like the Grand Central Station in the ocean, where you have a lot of organisms where they reproduce, animal extinctions, and many, many other types of consequences of climate change. So this is a real issue that we're trying to prevent. Okay, now I want to show you, here we have a picture of Hurricane Lorenzo, which occurred a few weeks ago. Now, I want to talk to you a little bit about Trump's environmental rollbacks. This is very important. I want to talk to you first about California. Why California? Because he wants to ramp up his war with California over pollution. In other words, California wants to increase the mileage that you get per gallon. And Trump wants to do away with that. And he wants to go back to the old standard. And this, of course, is very disastrous from the point of air pollution. This is just one thing that he's doing. Another thing that he's doing, I'm going to show you here, is a whole potload of regulations that he wants to overturn. Let me get this out of the way. Close this. And these are a whole list of environmental regulations that he wants to scrap. Okay? And let me show you this here. And here we see a whole list. It starts over here. Rollbacks. He wants to repeal anti-corruption rule that required energy companies to disclose payments to foreign governments. He wanted mining companies, he allowed them to dump their waste. It says dumping their waste into stream is axed. You're not supposed to dump, but he said it was okay. But anyway, here's a whole list of these terrible things. This one too. Trump announces a review of vehicle fuel efficiency standards that are designed to push down greenhouse gases. He's allowing certain pesticides to be put on the market, even though they've been proven to do damage to the nervous system, such as chlorpyrifos. Okay? And this has been linked, chlorpyrifos specifically has been linked to damage to the nervous system. And this goes on and on and on. However, there is something that I want to talk to you about, and that's the methane rule. He wants to take a 3-month pause to limit methane. He wants to get rid of that so the EPA can consider certain aspects of the regulation, even though methane is a powerful greenhouse gas. Now, I want to show you a chart about methane that I have in my book, Prognosis Disaster. And by the way, before I show you that, when Trump got out of the Paris Accords, this is a German magazine, they were real ticked at him, so they said, Earth to Trump. I can leave the rest of your imagination what that says, but Erd in German is Earth, and this is the German magazine, and obviously they didn't like it. And the Earth, if it could talk, it would tell him to do that. Okay, now, I want to talk to you specifically about methane. Why methane? Because methane is a powerful greenhouse gas. It heats up the planet between 21 and 85 times what carbon dioxide does. Now here, we see 28 to 36, but there are different magazines, different articles, they give you a different amount of times that methane heats up the Earth. I've seen it as low as 21 times, so anywhere between 21 and 85 times is what I've read. And so what does that mean? Well, when you have a little bit of carbon dioxide compared to the same amount of methane, methane it heats up the planet more, and we can see that here. However, there are other greenhouse gases too, other than methane, that kind of heat up the planet. We have nitrous oxide, and this has what's known, all these have a global warming potential. I should say what a global warming potential is. Global warming potential is the amount of times that the Earth heats up using carbon dioxide as one. So, methane, as I mentioned previously, has something of between 21 and 85 years, 85 times. Nitrous oxide, N2O, is almost 300 times that of CO2. And then we have the different hydrofluorocarbons. But the granddaddy of them all is sulfur hexafluoride. That's used in electrical transformers and things like this. That has a global warming potential, get this, of 22,800 times. So almost 23,000 times that of carbon dioxide. So I want to show you a chart which I took from my book, Prognosis Disaster, which came out in 2011. This is a chart that shows you the relative global warming potentials. And notice carbon dioxide is 1, and so here we have methane, it's about 21 to 85 times. Nitrous oxide, it only makes up 6% of the greenhouse gas, where we have the global warming potential 310. Chlorofluorocarbons, this is the stuff they use in air conditioners, especially car air conditioners, at least they used to. And refrigerators, it has between 1,300 and 12,000 times, depending on the type. We have perfluorocarbons. These also contain fluorine. And look at that, almost 12,000 times. And the sulfur hexafluoride, like I said, the granddaddy of them all, heats up the planet 22,800 times more than carbon dioxide. But fortunately, there's just a little bit of that in the environment that they use for electrical insulation. Now, what I want to do is show you a little bit about melting ice. This is one of the hazards of climate change. And if the ice melts, that's pretty bad, because that means you don't have enough reflection from the Earth back into space, and the world will heat up. We call this reflection albedo. I know it sounds like one of my Italian friends, albedo, but it's not. It has to do with the term, the reflectivity of the light. So let me show you this. I'm going to show you a little bit about ice melt. And this is very critical, by the way. This is very important. I'm just going to play about a minute. Just a minute. There we go.
Imagine a world where you can sail right up to the North Pole, where the largest ice sheet in the northern hemisphere is simply melting away.
The melt is winning this game.
We've now broken all-time records for 3 consecutive years.
As oceans continue to rise, flooding the streets of American cities half a world away.
What happens in the Arctic doesn't stay in the Arctic.
Imagine a world where hurricanes and heat waves wreak havoc.
Our breaking news as Hurricane Irma continues to show no mercy.
Just a hellstorm. The fire just whipped.
Where politicians deny the problem as temperatures continue to rise.
It's a hoax. I mean, it's a money-making industry, okay?
Greenland is an epicenter for climate change.
What if I told you this is already happening? Right here, right now. We are the primary cause, and that only we have the power to stop it.
Okay, so you get the idea. We can always watch this later
This
on.
is-
Your own. So, this is the serious problem that we have. Now, associated with climate change and melting ice, we have ocean chemistry change. The chemistry of the ocean is going to change. Why? Because first of all, the ocean has about a salinity of about 3.5%, okay? Salinity. And if we put fresh water in the ocean, we're going to dilute it and make it less saline, less salty, and that means that certain organisms cannot survive. And one of the issues about survivability is that we acidify the ocean. And I'm going to show you ocean acidification.
Who in here has heard of ocean acidification? So that's fantastic, because we just did some polling at NOAA, and the national average is about 8% of the people in the United States have heard of ocean acidification, which is just absolutely terrible, and about 90% of the people in this room raised their hand. So as usual, Sitka's ahead of the curve in terms of everything environmental and progressive in terms of the way you're thinking about the environment and the way the way environmental climate change is going to impact our lives. So I know you heard some talks yesterday starting to introduce this idea of climate change and the impact of climate change on humans, and I'm going to follow up with that today, specifically talking about ocean acidification, but I'm also going to lean a little bit more into the multi-stressor world, where we think about ocean acidification as one stressor, but there are also a few other things that are also going to...
Okay, so the problem with this is when you add carbon dioxide to water, you get carbonic acid, as you see from this equation here. CO2 plus H2O gives you H2CO3. H2CO3 is carbonic acid, and this is a slight acid. And this, by the way, why normal rainwater is a little on the acidic side, because as the rain comes down, it mixes with the carbon dioxide and to form this acid. Now, sometimes nature fights back. Let me show you this picture. I think you're going to like this. This is an incredible picture.
To top up your omega-3 DHA, you could lead the life of the Inuit Eskimo. Their omega-3 rich diet has contributed towards their healthy lives.
So, I knew you guys would get a kick out of it. Yes, I know, that was interesting. Whoops. Okay, now, did you know, here's the problem, 262 million people were affected by climate disasters, and let's see, what year was it? 94, I think it said. What was the year? We should go back to that. Let's see, where are we here? Let's see. Oh, oops. There, in 2004, more than 98% of them in developing countries. So all these people were suffering. 30 million more are likely to go hungry as agricultural yields decline, and then 150,000 lives are already being lost because of these problems. Okay, so this is a real action, and we have to do something now. So, in a moment, I'm going to tell you what we can do. But first of all, these are some of the things that humans do. They cut, chop, dig, burn, overpopulate. As I mentioned in the beginning, the Dugars, we learned about them. And humans make war, pollute the air, land, and water, chasing after their idle money. Lots more, just study history since Adam and Eve, and you can see what the humans do. So, I would be remiss if I didn't give you some solutions to all of these problems. So I've listed a few of them here. Obviously, I can't list them all, but these are the main problems. I'm going to show you what we humans can do. And why do I start off with the amazing accomplishment? The planet Pluto. See what human ingenuity can do. At the end of this presentation, I show one slide of Pluto. And I'll explain Pluto in a moment. But first, the other things we have to do is get rid of money, because money is destroying the planet. We have to control human population. Obviously, we can't keep producing people, because in the future, there's going to be too many people, not enough jobs, not enough education, not enough food, and we have to worry about that. We have to get rid of all fossil fuels, which include coal, oil, and gas. We have to end war, because war is just too devastating. When people make war on each other, they make war on the environment, and I don't think people really think about that. Also, we don't vote for stupid politicians. Realize that most campaign promises cannot be kept unless human nature changes, okay? And some of these problems are impossible. Some of these promises are impossible to keep. Also, everybody who votes should get educated on the issues and have the guts to speak up like I do. As I showed you previously, I sent a letter to Jeff Bezos about the problem in the Amazon, not his company, the Amazon jungle, hoping he could donate money. I'm sort of an activist, and as I mentioned previously, I didn't get any results, but at least I tried. If everybody does it, we might come up with something. Then, maybe we should all become photosynthetic like this specific mollusk, Elysia chlorotica, which is actually something like a snail. It's a slug. And slugs are like snails without shells. So I'm going to get into that. But first, let me show you Pluto. This is something real amazing. This is Pluto. It took 9 years with a special spacecraft called the New Horizons to get there. It was launched in January 19th, 2006, and on July 14th, 2015, it was taking pictures of Pluto. Isn't that a beautiful picture? The distance here is over, I think it's 3.6 billion miles, or almost 6 billion kilometers, which makes it a long walk, okay? Anyway, you get the idea. So the fact that we knew exactly when the satellite would hit, we would take pictures, etc. Now, there is one thing you might ask. How do we get the energy? Obviously, when you're that distance from the sun, you cannot use solar energy to power the spacecraft. So there are two ways to power these things. I'm not sure which one this one used, but there are two ways. One, they put a little nuclear reactor on the spacecraft, and two, there's something called the electromagnetic effect, and I forgot the exact name, and that produces electricity when you rub pieces of metal together, and evidently something to that effect. I'm not sure of the physics, but that's what made the electricity, so this can keep transmitting for 9 years the beautiful pictures. So this is one thing. So if we have human ingenuity to do this, that means we can do other things, such as I mentioned earlier, getting rid of money if we put our minds together. Lastly, this is a green slug, the phylum Mollusca. Mollusca is the same organisms of which octopus belong to. Snails, clams, things like this, okay? Now, obviously, whoops, I might go back here a minute. I made a mistake. I think mollusca is 2L, if I'm correct. There we go. Okay, it has 2 L's, and this particular slug, he eats this algae, okay, called Valchiria litoria. It's a green algae. The slug ingests the chloroplast, which are little green things you see, into its own cells, and then manufactures chloroplast, which are the green things used in cells that photosynthesize, and therefore it photosynthesizes, thus allowing the creature to live without eating for the rest of his life. Maybe this is something we should do ourselves, if we can get humans to photosynthesize instead of eating cows and things like this. This is the first known evidence for transcription and translation, which means making proteins using algae chloroplast genes in an animal host. It's amazing how they figured this out, but I think this is incredible. And so, like I said, perhaps we should all try to become photosynthetic organisms. Then we don't have to worry about growing food. All we have to do is keep chloroplasts. Okay, so This is all I have to say. Are there any questions? Okay, nobody has any questions, you sure? Okay, then, well, all I gotta do is say thank you for coming, folks, and I'll be giving a couple more lectures in April. Thank you for coming, and hope to see you soon. Okay.